The Ghost of the Atlantic faces the unknown. May 1943. The North Atlantic stretched endlessly, a gray and restless expanse under a sky that seemed to press down on the small, powerful vessel cutting through its surface. Captain Eric Topp stood atop the conning tower of U-552, his binoculars trained on the horizon. The water was unusually calm, too calm, a silence that could only foreshadow danger. Every year, every patrol had taught him lessons in instinct and survival. Every U-boat commander carried a sixth sense for peril, a quiet alarm that whispered in the back of the mind. And now that alarm was screaming, below. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, preparing what should have been a routine patrol. They had been through countless hours like this before: the clanging of machinery, the careful loading of torpedoes, the buzz of anticipation as the boat slipped silently across the waves. U-552 had already claimed 35 Allied ships, nearly 200,000 tons. Her captain, decorated with the Knight's Cross with oak leaves, was one of Germany's most feared submarine commanders. His men had long since dubbed him the Ghost of the Atlantic. They trusted him as both a commander and a predator of the seas. Yet even the Ghost could feel the change in the wind. The sun rose slowly, casting pale light across the horizon. 40 merchant ships appeared, stretching like a floating city, swaying gently on the tides. Topp's pulse quickened. This was the dream of every U-boat captain: numbers, size, opportunity, glory. He raised his hand, the familiar signal for an attack, but then came the sound, a high-pitched electronic pulse, piercing and unnatural, sliced through the morning air. Topp froze, binoculars lowered, heart tightening. This was no radar signature the crew had ever encountered. Whispers had circulated in luring rumors of secret Allied weapons, almost fantastical in nature. They had seemed the exhausted imaginings of men stretched thin by war. Until now, alarm? Clear the bridge? Topp's voice carried authority, sharp and unyielding. Men reacted instantly. Klaxons screamed, echoing off the metallic walls of the conning tower. Crew members scrambled down ladders as diesel engines coughed to a stop. Electric motors took over, a quieter, ghostly propulsion suited for evasion. The bow of U-552 tilted downward, slicing into the depths of the Atlantic. Topp's instincts screamed that something was amiss. The pulse had originated directly above, but the sky held no aircraft. Nothing to betray its source, level at 60 meters. Silent running. Klaus Bergton, the first watch officer, leaned close, his brow furrowed. "Captain, what did you see?" "Nothing," Topp admitted, though he knew that even without visual confirmation, danger had arrived. "But I heard it. An electronic pulse. Very high frequency." Bergton frowned. "SDIC, but we're on the surface." "Not ASDIC, then what?" Minutes dragged like hours. Then the low, menacing drone of aircraft engines reached them. Twin engines, heavy and unmistakable. Liberator bombers. Ice crawled down Topp's spine. They were 12 kilometers from the convoy, a safe distance by conventional logic. Yet somehow, the aircraft had located them with impossible precision. Depth charges followed. Explosions rocked the submarine, light bulbs shattered, steel groaned, and the crew held on as the hull flexed under the deadly pressure. When the attack ended, the convoy had vanished over the horizon. A day wasted, a victory opportunity lost, a chilling confirmation of what Topp had long feared: something had changed in the Atlantic. He recorded in his log, "Detected by unknown means while still on surface. Aircraft appeared without visual contact. Recommend investigation of possible new Allied detection technology." 3 days passed before the next convoy appeared. Topp had learned the lesson of those few terrifying hours. No surface attacks in daylight. Night was the ally of the hunter. Submarines in 1943 were primarily surface vessels, designed to strike quickly and disappear. Darkness concealed speed, visibility, and the efficient use of deck guns. They were ghosts in the night, predators of shadows. At 2,300 hours, U-552 surfaced 8 kilometers from the convoy. Overcast, moonless, visibility under 500 meters. The crew moved swiftly, loading 4 torpedo tubes. Topp calculated the firing solution with instinct honed over 3 years of war. But before he could give the order, the sea erupted in blinding light. A star shell had ignited above the convoy, transforming night into day. From nowhere, a British destroyer charged. Bow wave cresting like a wall of white water, depth charges raining with terrifying accuracy. U-552 groaned under the onslaught. Systems failed, hydraulic leaks, jammed stern planes, flooding compartments. Topp ordered a desperate dive to 180 meters, deeper than recommended. The destroyer pursued relentlessly, adjusting with uncanny precision as if it could see through the water itself. For 3 long hours, U-552 fought for survival. Trapped in a deadly dance with death. By the 3rd week of May, Topp had sunk only 2 ships. Fuel dwindled, morale faltered. Worse, the pattern of detection defied logic. Day, night, fog, clear. Submerged or surfaced, always. In the wardroom, Topp spread charts across the table. Red marks detailed every encounter over 3 weeks. Barston and Herman studied the data, which means... Herman's voice trailed off. "We're being detected all the time." "Always," Topp confirmed, grim. The statistics were grim. 31 U-boats lost in 20 days. Experienced crews gone. Germany's campaign to strangle Britain's supply lines was collapsing. Topp made a dangerous decision. He broke radio silence, sending a concise report, detected repeatedly by unknown means. Aircraft locate U-552 in 0 visibility. Surface radar undetectable by METOX. Night attacks by destroyers with impossible accuracy. Request immediate technical analysis. Topp. Hours later, the reply came, similar reports from other boats. This wasn't an isolated phenomenon. The entire fleet was facing a new, invisible enemy. May 24, 1943, U-552. Surfaced in darkness to charge batteries. Standard procedure. Suddenly, searchlights blazed. A Liberator bomber appeared less than 200 meters away, its pilot clearly visible. Depth charges slammed into the ocean around the boat. Emergency lights flickered and died. Water flooded compartments. The crew moved with practiced efficiency, opening scuttling valves, setting demolition charges. Topp was last to abandon ship. U-552 slipped beneath the Atlantic, leaving only bubbles and debris behind. 42 men survived. On the deck of a British destroyer, Topp finally saw the truth. A young officer gestured toward a radar screen glowing with green dots. "Centimetric radar," he said. "We see everything from 30 kilometers, day or night. METOX can't detect it." Each green dot represented a U-boat. Each one visible, vulnerable, doomed. Centimetric radar, paired with new tactics and intelligence, had rewritten the rules of submarine warfare. Allied production of merchant ships and escorts surged, outpacing Germany's ability to sink them. By summer 1943, the tide of the Battle of the Atlantic had shifted irrevocably. Topp understood. As did every seasoned submariner, the war at sea was no longer about stealth or courage alone. It was about technology, coordination, and intelligence. Technology wins wars, Topp would later reflect. But only if you understand what you're up against. Black May and the Invisible wore the North Atlantic in late May 1943 was no longer a hunting ground for the U-boats. It had become a graveyard. Captain Eric Topp and his crew had survived the first encounters, but the sea had turned against them. The calm waters now carried a chilling message. The Allies could see what no submarine had ever feared could be seen. U-552 had returned to the surface only to charge her batteries, a routine operation that had always been safe in the darkest hours before dawn. But safety had been an illusion. The previous night, the electronic pulse had announced a new era of warfare, one in which invisibility no longer protected hunters. Topp watched the horizon from the conning tower, binoculars tracing empty skies, every nerve taut. The crew, silent and alert, moved through familiar motions that now felt meaningless against this unseen enemy. At 0400 hours on May 24th, the illusion shattered. Searchlights blazed, cutting through the darkness with blinding intensity. A Liberator bomber emerged from the black like a predator materializing from the shadows. Less than 200 meters from U-552, Topp could see the pilot's face. A grim young man of the Royal Air Force. Depth charges slammed the ocean around the submarine. The hull shuddered under the concussive force, steel groaning as if it were alive and protesting. Emergency lights flickered across the interior, casting crimson glows on terrified, sweat-streaked faces. Water sprayed from ruptured pipes, and the metallic tang of fear filled the air. Systems failed in rapid succession. Hydraulic leaks stifled the diving planes. Electric motors overheated and compartments began to flood. Yet the crew acted with terrifying efficiency. Years of training and discipline carried them through, each man performing tasks with mechanical precision. "Scuttle! Prepare demolition charges!" Topp shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. He moved methodically, ensuring the Enigma machine and codebooks would not fall into Allied hands. His heart beat steadily, not with panic, but with the grim focus of a man who knew that every second counted. U-552 slid beneath the waves, her bow rising as the stern sank into the Atlantic. Cold water enveloped Topp as he jumped from the conning tower, breaking the surface and fighting the waves. Around him, 42 of his crew clung to life rafts and debris. The once feared ghost of the Atlantic, now a survivor of its own demise. Hours later, a British destroyer arrived, its deck a refuge from the merciless sea. Wrapped in blankets, sipping hot tea, Topp finally understood the scale of the catastrophe. A young officer gestured toward a radar display, the circular screen glowing with bright green dots. "That's how we found you," the officer explained. "Centimetric radar. Every U-boat in this sector is visible, day or night, in any weather. Your METOX receivers won't detect it. It operates on a completely different wavelength." Topp stared numbly at the screen. Each dot represented a U-boat. Each dot represented lives in jeopardy. In an instant, the Atlantic had been transformed from a hunting ground into a controlled environment, where the Allies could see, track, and respond with surgical precision. The reality struck with brutal clarity. Centimetric radar, a technology so secret that even most Allied commanders barely understood its full potential, had tipped the balance of the war. Developed from the cavity magnetron at the University of Birmingham in 1940 and refined at MIT's Radiation Laboratory, it allowed detection of surface submarines, periscopes, and even snorkels from distances up to 30 kilometers. No METOX, no listening post. No clever evasive maneuver could escape it. For U-boat commanders like Topp, the implications were devastating. Germany had built the Atlantic campaign around invisibility, the ability to strike at night, to disappear before escorts could react. That invisibility was gone. Every patrol was now a gauntlet. Every engagement, a fight against the technology they could neither see nor counterdot. By mid-May, the numbers reflected the new reality. 31 U-boats were lost in 20 days. Experienced commanders and crews, seasoned in the arts of stealth and surprise, perished. Allied convoys were no longer vulnerable. They were protected by a system that integrated radar, intelligence, and operational coordination. The U-boat campaign, once a fearsome threat to Britain's survival, was faltering. Topp's mind, trained to analyze every variable, could not escape the mathematics. By April, the Germans had sunk 56 Allied ships, but American shipyards had launched 140 new merchant vessels in the same month. By June, U-boat sinkings dropped to 28. By July, just 17. The production of merchant ships outpaced destruction, and with centimetric radar, every vessel became a fortress. The technological advantage was more than individual tools, it was the orchestration of them. Escort carriers provided air cover across the mid-Atlantic. Depth charges had improved magnetic detonators. Hedgehog mortar attacked without losing sonar contact. And ultra-intelligence decrypted Enigma messages in near real time. Convoys moved in coordinated, methodical patterns. Every element of Allied anti-submarine warfare had been refined to an almost mechanical perfection. On the deck of the destroyer, Topp felt the bitter truth crystallize. Germany had not lost the Atlantic campaign through lack of courage or skill. They had lost it because the Allies had built a system, a network of technology, intelligence, and tactics that made U-boat operations unsustainable. Even if Germany could build more submarines than they could lose, the system rendered each deployment increasingly fatal. In the weeks that followed, the impact of the technology became undeniable. Convoy losses dropped dramatically. Allied production surged. Submariners faced a reality they could not change. Commanders, including the once feared Admiral Donitz, made the only possible decision to withdraw U-boats from the North Atlantic, at least temporarily. The withdrawal was presented as a redeployment for technical upgrades. But every submariner knew the truth. The Battle of the Atlantic had been lost. Topp, held in British custody for 2 years after the war, reflected on Black May of 1943, the month U-552 and 43. Other U-boats sank beneath the Atlantic. Over 1,000 submariners perished. The once dominant U-boat force was reduced to survivors and ghosts of its former menace. The lesson was clear: technology, when fully understood and integrated, could win battles that skill alone could not. By 1958, Topp returned to the newly formed West German Navy, eventually rising to the rank of Rear Admiral. In interviews late in life, he spoke with a mixture of respect and bitterness. Respect for the innovation and coordination that had defeated him. Bitterness for the men who had died because their warnings were dismissed. "We told them something had changed," he said. "We were being detected by unknown means, but they kept sending us out, patrol after patrol, until we were dead or captured." The victory in the Atlantic was not measured in dramatic single battles, but in the quiet, relentless effectiveness of centimetric radar, intelligence coordination, and industrial capacity. By June 1944, during the D-Day landings, over 5,000 ships crossed the English Channel without a single U-boat sinking one. A small cavity magnetron, the brainchild of engineers and laboratory halls far from the front lines, had rewritten the rules of submarine warfare. It had changed the outcome of the war. For Topp, the lesson was enduring. The seas are not won by courage alone. They are won by understanding the battlefield, the enemy, and the invisible tools that tip the balance of life and death. The Atlantic had taught him that technology was as deadly as any torpedo, and sometimes far more decisive even decades later. When Topp recounted those May days, he remembered the pulse of the unknown, the eerie hum before the first depth charges, and the green dots on the radar screen, symbols of a new age of warfare. And he knew that the ghost of the Atlantic had finally met an enemy he could not escape.